Good morning. Welcome to our September 26th Richmond Rose Society meeting. Thank everybody for coming. I'm going to make a few comments before we get to Mr. Berry. All right, the first one is Miss Kitty needs some articles for our October rose petal. So if you could come up with anything, email it to her or message it to her, either way you want to do. And then I'm going to tell y'all about Julie is creating a rose memory book for the 2021 calendar. That's almost over. All right, now, I'm trying to make it as short as possible because you know me. I can never get anything right. I'm going to give you from our rose show. I'm going to tell you who won what. All right, Joan Reed won sweepstakes plus 4 other trophies. Dean won 2 trophies. Lynn won 2 trophies. And I'm going to try to pronounce this A-R-I-J-A.
That's me.
Okay, you won 1 trophy. Cleveland won 3 trophies. Julie, Ann McNeil, Rick, and Peggy Scotch each won 1 trophy. Leanne won a silver award in photographs, and Joan won 3 awards in photographs.
Wow.
So I think that was a pretty good turnout. I went to the Martinsville last weekend, and I think our show was a little bit better than theirs. Well, it always is. I hope they're not standing behind me. Also, I'm going to bring up the thing about the Christmas party. I'm negotiating with Henry Clay and Ashland for the Christmas party for about the 4th and 5th of December. But I can't guarantee we're going to be able to get it because it's a little bit up in the air right now. With this other Delta coming in, it's a little bit up in the air. So I'm going up to Pennsylvania this Thursday. I'm going to stop there, talk to them, and see what I can come up with so we can have a Christmas party and everything on this. And so I'm hoping it works out because it's really not, the banquet room is really nice. They decorated at Christmas time, so it's all set up. All we have to do, I'm thinking about using the buffet, which would be less expensive, run about $30 a person. So I don't think that's too bad on that. Now, if I can get the young lady to pay for my dinner up in Martinsville in the restaurant, if she shows up, she'll pay for mine again, maybe. I couldn't believe, first time in my life I had a lady sitting in front of me, she paid for my supper. And I said, well, thank you, lady. Must have been the hat.
Maybe she was drunk.
And she probably was, because they were serving, which doesn't hurt my feelings. She wants to pay for it. I don't turn it down. I've gotten phone numbers off of airplanes from ladies, so I don't turn them down either. See, I don't have to worry about looking over my shoulder. Good morning. Come on in.
Thank you.
So I don't have to look over my shoulder. And you doing all right?
I sure am.
Okay. There's a sign-in sheet there for you. Okay, now, we're going to get Marie to give the minutes from the last meeting. Please, young lady. See how I tell you, your wife is a young lady?
Well, she's an XYL, actually.
You're going to lock the door when you get home, aren't you?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, our June 27th meeting was held at the Winter Park Recreation Center and was called to order by President Philip Smith. Dues are still $12 a person or $17 per couple. If you haven't paid, please do so. Treasurer's report was income of $1,723, expenses $1,268.28. Checking account balance, I got too many figures here unless we're in 5 digits. Let me leave that one be for now. Savings account was $1,040.33. Next meeting September, and it's possible we can get back to Children's Hospital maybe next year, but that's still up in the air
That's-
too.
Yeah.
Special presentation, Barry Boyd presented Sudsy Rose Bush to Julie Ashman. Sudsy was a rose that was hybridized by Barry. Rick Brown said that the horticultural entries for the month were the best he'd seen in many years. Julie Ashman showed a rose memory book. You can get them printed by Shutterfly, Walmart, Walgreens, or similar companies. You can send your photos and they will compile them and put them together in a book format. Carol Fox presented her tips for getting ready for a rose show. The upcoming rose shows at that time were the Colonial District, which was September 18th at Martinsville, and Arlington was September 25th. And then we had our show September 4th and 5th at Lewis Ginter. And I'm not going to go through all the details from Carol, but she had lots of different tips. She's very comprehensive in her advice with preparing what you can prepare at home before the show, cutting your roses and wrapping them in freezer paper or something similar to make a cone to protect your rose, and writing the name of the rose on the paper cone so that maybe you don't get mixed up last minute. Another tip I thought was a very good tip is to make a list of all of your roses and put a copy of that in your toolbox to carry with you along with the ARS handbook. Carol also encouraged members to enter an arrangement in the Anything Goes category, which is not judged. But I believe this year we had people voting, so that we had their choice. You could indicate your choice
Yeah,
for
we
that.
let the public vote and everything like that,
Right.
so.
That's what I have.
I think Betsy got it.
What?
Did you get the one from the arrangements? Yeah, she got that on that.
All right.
All right, thank you, Miss Marie. And getting old. Okay, all right, Miss Grace.
All right, for year-to-date revenue, we have had $3,047. Expenses year-to-date are $1,807.01. Currently in our checking account, we have $3,893.88. Our savings account is $1,040.36. And our CD is $5,264.25. And in petty cash, there's $150.
Okay, thank you. Here you go, Marie. Okay. I appreciate everybody that did on the road show. I think it went off real well. I think it went off excellent. Mrs. Phyllis worked with us on setting up the rooms, and then we took the judges out to the restaurant. Marion and John got that set up for us. So I think it went off real well. Yes, ma'am.
Will the rose show be in September from now on?
Well, we're going to figure that out. If we can change it, might change it up. But Phyllis from Lewis Jenner called and said that was available if we wanted it. So we had to take it. And I think we're going to try to work. Carol's working with her again to see if we can come up with a different date on that. So we'll see that. And we need to figure out, I got to get with the committee and figure out next year's agenda to see what we can do. But I know with the Delta, it's going to be hard to come up with a good place to go. I appreciate Leanne. I appreciate you working with your church and us today. You did an excellent job. And if you want me to, I'll be glad to go up and preach next week. I had to do that one at my great-great-grandfather's church in Pennsylvania.
Is this where we're going to meet from now on?
I have no idea. I don't know if we can do it or not. Next October the 24th, if you got the agenda, it says Christy Othy. All right, she went back to college. The program came up and she said she couldn't turn it down. So we're gonna have it at Carol Fox's house. So if you make a note of that on your agenda,
Where is that?
Carol Fox, we'll put it out on email. Do you have a listing of emails and stuff?
Yes, I do.
All right, it should be on there.
But this so far has been the closest location for me. All the other locations have been at least 2 hours away. And it's just
I'm
not.
2 hours too. Well, Carol is in Doswell.
No, northern neck.
Oh, wow.
So that's a ways away on that. But we're trying our best, but I think you understand. We always use the Children's Hospital, but I would never go in there and interfere with what they're
Oh,
doing.
sure, I realize
Yeah.
that. But when
And
you had Pam Road, I thought, oh, I know exactly where that is, and it's not so far to go. But it was still an hour and 45 minutes.
yeah, it's a way. It's about the same, almost 2 hours for me. I live down near Williamsburg.
When I asked for today, I asked for literally just today's date, and they rearranged some stuff so that we could have this, so I could, that's,
Well, we really won't have to worry about it until January. Because October, we got it at Carl's, and then we've got off November, then we got our December Christmas party, so we won't have to go until the last weekend of January. So maybe we can come up with something by then, and we can work it on that, because this is really, to me, it's a nice location. Churches are always nice. They don't like me, but they're nice. Okay, now, Mr. Barry,
Yes,
do you feel like you want to start?
I'm ready when you are.
I'm ready, Freddie. Is there anything I missed before he gets up front that I need to talk about? Okay. Thank you, Barry.
Certainly.
Thank you, Dee.
Well, since we don't have a PA system, I'm going to use my outdoor voice. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All righty then. My 25 years as a corporate trainer is paying off. Okay. Except I can't find my clicker. What did I do with my clicker? Here it is. Well, we already have the first question here, and that is, what is your favorite rose? Because we're going to talk about rose propagation, but before we do that, I want to find out what your favorite rose is. So who'd like to volunteer their favorite rose? Don't everybody raise their hand at once. Okay, Kitty?
Peace.
Peace. Peace to you too. Okay. And you had your hand up.
Lady Elsie May.
Lady Elsie May? Okay.
Secret.
Secret?
7 sisters.
7 sisters. That's a big one.
That's an old,
That's a big family. Yeah.
yes, it is.
Tropicana.
Tropicana's an oldie but goodie. Anybody else want to volunteer?
PAK, Princess Alejandra,
That Austin? So wonderful rose.
Easy does it was new and just outperformed herself.
And it's a no spray rose, which is always welcome.
What did she say? What is it?
Easy does it.
It's
Oh,
wonderful.
that's orange.
Wonderful.
Is that the orange? Oh, that's
Yeah, it's
beautiful.
beautiful.
Yeah. I've got another one I like, which is fairly new, and that's Bolero, and that was recommended by the American Rose Society. It is gorgeous. and
What color is that one?
It's white, but when it opens up, it has a little bit of pink on the inside, but the fragrance is wonderful. And it's just the second year, and it's just blooming like crazy.
Sounds delightful.
Bolero.
Bolero.
Is it a shrub?
I-
Is it a floribunda?
I'm sorry, no, it's either a shrub or floribunda, but I think it's a floribunda.
Yeah.
But
And you
it's
had a
just
comment?
I really like At Last. It blooms all summer, doesn't seem to have ins and outs, and the fragrance is unbelievable.
I just bought that one this year.
At last.
Nobody's mentioned miniatures. I like things like conundrum.
That's a great rose, very colorful.
I like Foolish Pleasure.
Haven't seen that one. What color is that?
A pink blend, pink
Ah.
and white, yeah.
Sounds nice. Well, I'm going to tell you my favorite rose. My favorite rose is a free rose. And with rose prices topping out over $50 some places, like Heirloom.
Yes.
And I bought my first $75 rose this past winter. The only place I had it was in Canada, so between the phytosanitary certificate and the postage and the rose, it was $75. And so I couldn't find it anywhere else. So we're going to see how to get free roses, so you all can have a larger garden, but not a smaller wallet. So, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about rose patents, because we don't want the rose police showing up in our garden. We're going to talk about the supplies we need, how to prepare cuttings, pop bottle propagation, or I guess here in the South they call it soda bottle propagation, and baggy propagation, hardwood propagation, sports, and I'm not talking golf and tennis, and today's samples, which at the end I'm going to encourage you to take some cuttings home. We have paper towels and bags that you could put them in so they survive the ride home. We have Sharpies so you can write on the bag so when you get home it's not what did I bring home. And plastic razor blades that you've never seen those. The nice thing about them is they can't cut you, but they can scrape the side of the rose cutting nicely and expose the interior for propagation. So, let's talk about rose patents. The first thing I want to make clear is I am not a lawyer, nor do I play one on TV. And this is just my understanding of how patents work based on what I have read on government websites. Okay. The roses you can propagate are those that are not patented. There's no protection there. If the patent has expired, and that takes 20 years, and if it says PRR, which is patent rights reserved, that means they haven't coughed up the bucks to do a patent yet, but they're reserving the right to do so. So you can have at it. Roses you can't propagate. Ones that say PP or USPP. And that is one that is patented, and there's PPAF, which is plant patent applied for. And by the way, the PP stands for plant patent, and USPP is, of course, United States plant patent. So the question comes to mind, to keep the rose police out of your garden, how do you know if it's patented or not? Well, patents begin on the date that the patent was applied for, not the date that the patent was granted. So you might see that a patent was granted, on July 4th, 2000. And you would think, well, you can't patent it until July 4th, you can't propagate it until July 4th, 2020. But that's not true, because sometime before July 4th, 2000, the application was put in. So let's take a look at an example. Disneyland Floribunda Rose. The application date was October 2003, and it was granted on August 2004. So using your advanced math skills, when can you legally propagate this rose?
October 2023.
Exactly. You get an A. Okay, so how do you know if it's patented? We now know how patents work. We know what dates are important. Well, who here has used their computer to go to helpmefind.com? Okay. It is a great website. It's free for the most part, unless you want to start doing some advanced searches. Then you need to pay about 20 bucks to join up. But what it will do, if you can see this real small mouse print, for Disneyland, it says that it was patented on August 31st, 2004, and it was applied for on October 29th, 2003. So you'll know whether it's patented or not, and you'll know if the patent is currently in effect or not if you visit Help Me Find. Now here's just an aside. It doesn't have anything really to do with the propagation that we're going to be doing, which is vegetative propagation. But if you do hybridize and you take pollen and you put it on the flowers and it produces seeds, Plants produced from seeds are not affected by patents, except if it is covered by a utility patent. And there's only one rose out there that is covered by a utility patent, and that is Petite Knockout. You can't use the pollen or the seeds from Petite Knockout for about another 19 years. And judging from the fact that it gets bad black spot, it doesn't self-clean, and the dead roses look like gray mummies, I don't think it's going to be around too long, but that's just my personal opinion. Some people may like that. So, rose propagation, what do you need? What's going to be in your rose propagation bag? Well, you need to put the cuttings into some sort of dirt, and the best dirt is 50% sharp sand. And what do I mean by sharp sand? Well, when you go to Lowe's or to Home Depot, you'll find two types of sand. There's construction sand, which is sharp sand, and then there's sand that's very fine and soft and won't hurt little hands, and that's the sand you put into the sandbox for the kidlets. And so you want the construction sand, because since it's sharp, it irritates the cells of your cutting when you put it in, and those irritated cells are more likely to produce roots than ones that are in nice, comfy playground sand. And the other thing that you need to add is peat moss, or you can use coconut coir, which is basically finely ground fibers from the husk of a coconut. And the coconut coir you can get at Walmart on their website for about 10 bucks. You put that square thing that's hard as a rock into a wheelbarrow. You fill the wheelbarrow up with water, and about 4 hours later, you've got stuff that looks like peat moss. And it's very easy to store it in your garage if you don't want to have big bales of peat moss.
So both of those are pictures of things we should get? That's the
Yes.
sharp sand?
Yes, you want to get construction sand or multi-purpose sand, and you want to get either peat moss or you want to get the coconut coir. I have a picture of the coconut coir from Walmart right there. So 50-50 mix. And the peat moss is going to retain the water because these guys don't have roots at the beginning, and they need to have lots of water and moisture to be able to easily bring up into the cutting. And the sand to stimulate the roots formation. And also, if you did just peat moss, it would be too soggy and they'd probably drown. Okay, so what do you mix it in? Well, you can get a cement trough for about $6 or $7 off of eBay. I'm not eBay, I'm sorry, Amazon. And you just take a little hoe and you mix it together, and that works fine. We use an electric cement mixer since we do a lot of cuttings, a lot of cuttings. Probably about $150 for the mixer, and so probably not worth it unless you're going to go into this as a major part of the rose hobby. You could also get a 5-gallon paint bucket and a trowel and just mix it in that, or one of your trash cans that doesn't have any trash in it. You can put the dirt in there and mix it in that. But the cement trough is what we used until we we took the cement mixer plunge, and we've been very happy with that decision. So, supplies you need. You need a cup of water. You need a scissor or a pruner to be able to cut the cutting to length. You need the rooting hormone. You need 2-liter pop bottles or baggies. You'll need plant labels, and you'll need pots. And we're going to go over each of these in just a moment, because I kind of just went over them like an auctioneer, and somebody's going to want to take notes. So, what do we want to use for rooting hormones? Well, most hormones that you get from Walmart or from the hardware store are rather weak. And they're great if you want to root coleus. They're great if you want to root chrysanthemums. They're great if you want to root, if you want to root ivy. But they're not really strong enough for the toughest roses. Sorry, I got out of frame there. So the best.
Move frame 5 times on
What's
the
that?
guy.
The best rooting hormone is 0.8% indole butyric acid, and you can find that either as Hormidin or number 3 or Hormex number 8. They have some other numbers out there which are different strengths, but these are the best strengths for roses. Hormidin number 3 or Hormex number 8. Now, You may read on the internet, of course you may read a number of things on the internet, doesn't necessarily make it true, but you may read that, well, I use honey. Well, guess what? Honey doesn't have any rooting hormone in it. What it does have is fungicide and bactericide, so your cuttings are less likely to rot, but not more likely to root. And I guess not rotting is a good thing, but we're after roots. Willow water works, but it's very weak form of rooting hormone, so probably not your best choice. Aspirin, you can take that after you get a headache from not getting any roots, or you can try to root with it, and it's about as strong as willow water, or the weak general use powders like rooting powder or take root or root boost. As I mentioned before, those are great if you want to root some coleus or some chrysanthemums, but probably not good for roses. Now there are some rose varieties that are easy to root. There's one called gardenia, and when the cane touches the ground, it actually self-roots, and then another plant pops up, and it goes over here, and it does it again, and it will just walk across your yard, and your yard will become full of gardenia. Probably not a choice you want unless you have, multiple acres. And then there are some that are really difficult to root. I find the gallicas are not my friend when it comes to rooting. There is one rose out there called unrootable red china. And believe it or not, it's easy to root. So I'm not sure why they named it that, but it does have that name. Okay, more supplies you'll need. Pop bottles or baggies. And this is because when you've just taken your cutting doesn't have any roots, and it needs to not have all the water that's in its tissues evaporate. And so you can prevent that by giving it a high humidity environment. And you can do that by putting it inside of a big old baggie. Hefty makes 2.5 gallon baggies, Ziploc makes 2 gallon baggies, or you can cut the bottom off a pop bottle and make yourself a teeny tiny greenhouse. They both work great. You're going to want to label it, because one of the worst things is creating a whole bunch of cuttings and then coming back a week or two later to see how they're doing. It's like, oh, I forgot to put the labels in. I have no idea what these guys are, and I have done that. So you want to make sure that you label them right when you put them in the dirt. And I am a cheap person, which you can probably tell because I make my own roses. I also make my own plant labels. And the cheapest way to do it is get vinyl mini blinds. They're like $5 at Walmart. And cut them apart. Each blind slat can probably be cut into 4 labels. And the thing is, they are UV resistant because they're hanging up in the window. There's some over there. Just think all the plant labels we could make in here today, but we'd never be invited back. So the thing is, they're not crumbling here in the windows because they have UV protection. So they're going to last a while in your garden. They're not going to crumble. Now, the challenge is when you write on them, if you write on them with a regular Sharpie or a magic marker, and you do this in the beginning of spring, at the end of fall when you're ready to plant them, you have no idea what they are because all of the marks have faded away into nothing. So, 2 things. One, if you don't want to get fancy, use a number 2 pencil. They last about 3 years. So you just write on it with pencil and it will still be there. It won't be elegant, you won't be able to read it from a distance, but if you bend over and look at the tag, you'll be able to read it. The other one, if you want them to be a little longer lasting and easy to read, is to get something called a tag pen. And if you've ever been in a farm, or probably more likely on a farm, you'll notice that the animals there have ear tags. Okay, you might have, 50 pigs. Each one has a number because you need to know which pig is which. I don't know why, but you need to know which pig is which. Probably for vaccines or something, I don't know. But anyway, if at the end of the growing season of pigs, you went there and all the ear tags were blank, your business would suffer because you couldn't certify that they had been treated properly or whatever pigs need. I'm not a pig person. But if you use a tag pen, which is what's meant to go on those tags, they don't fade for many years. And so that's what I use on my homemade tags, and it's worked out really well. Next thing you need is pots. I'm not talking about the type you smoke, we're talking about the type you put plants in. And most people who are gardeners have a ton of pots sitting somewhere in their yard. It might be sitting under the porch, sitting in the shed, in the basement, but they're somewhere. And they're just holding them till one day somebody's going to need them. Well, you're the person that's going to need them, so ask your friends who garden if they have some pots they can spare, and I bet you walk home with 20 or 30 pots.
Great big greenhouse in the front, tons of recyclable pots where you can help yourself.
Oh, that's wonderful. So I like that. I will check that out. I've been begging at Rose Society meetings for pots, and I've been getting a lot of them, and then I start plants, and then we have auctions a couple times a year where I bring a bunch of plants in, we auction them off and make some money for the Rose Society. So they sort of have a cycle. I get them back. And then the red ones there, you can get them from Amazon. They are $25 for $12, so that's 50 cents a piece. And the pop bottle fits just inside of them, and they don't take up a lot of room. And I've used a lot of those recently. So if you don't want to drive to Great Big Greenhouse and you'd rather have the Amazon truck bring it to you, that's another option. But I like the Great Big Greenhouse idea. Thank you. Okay, so preparing your cuttings. So first off, if we're talking about when most people do their cuttings, they're going to be doing semi-hardwood cuttings. And a semi-hardwood cutting is when the hip is about 1 to 2 weeks old. The flower has dropped its petals and it's beginning to form a hip. But you're not waiting so long that the leaves have started putting out auxiliary canes. They need to have not started sending shoots up all along the cane. It's just, it flowered, it dropped its petal, I waited a week, time to get to cutting. You're using this year's wood. The best time for a semi-hardwood cutting is spring or summer. For the semi-hardwood cuttings, or what we like to call bendy wood, because it's very easy to bend. And these can go into the ground the same year because they only take about 6 to 8 weeks to root if you get them in the spring, when there's lots of sap running and hormones are running through the plant. Now, hardwood cuttings, the canes are several months old. You take these late fall or early winter, and I call this not so bendy wood because it doesn't bend nearly as well as a soft semi-hardwood cutting. And these go in the ground the next spring or summer because they take a couple seasons to root, because they're rooting during the coldest months of the year when the plant has really slowed down. The roots are coming out very slowly. In fact, there is a good reason to do hardwood cutting. Well, first off, in the late fall and in the winter, are you doing a lot of rose-related stuff? No. Well, here's a rose-related thing you can do. You can make more roses. And since it's so cold, the water is not evaporating out of the plant very quickly. So you don't have to cover it up with a baggie or with a pop bottle. You can just put your cuttings in and you're done. Water it so it's moist, but that's about it. And since I don't have to cover it with something, I can put more than one cutting in the pot. So here is a bow bells that I struck last December. And as you can see, there's 4 cuttings in this pot. So I can ultimately separate this and have 4 more bow bell plants. Now, if you're taking these cuttings in late December or even January, you may notice that when March and April come around, that it starts to send out shoots. But there's no guarantee that it has roots at that point because you started them so late. So I've had a lot that I started late, sent out the shoots that looked really healthy, nice, beautiful, bright green leaves, and 2 weeks later they were all dead. Because what happened is the temperature got high enough that the lack of roots couldn't pull up enough moisture, and the evaporation was too significant that it just dried them out and they died in less than half a day. So if in March when it starts to get warm, tug on your little plants. If they move, you know the roots haven't taken hold yet, and at that point you need to take a baggie or a pop bottle and put it on the top, just like you would with a semi-hardwood cutting. In a couple more months, you'll have a good rooted rose. Okay, so taking a cutting. Get a cutting with 5 leaves on it. And trim it to 3 leaves. So cut the 2 bottom leaves off. Cut that rose hip off the top too, because you don't need it drawing energy away from the cutting. Trim the bottom to within 1/2 inch of a leaf bud. So you can see there's where a leaf used to be, and there's a little leaf bud sitting underneath there. You want that towards the very bottom of the plant, about 1/2 inch from the bottom. And then, here's when you get out your fancy plastic razor blades. And you scrape through the bud, scrape about 1/2 inch of tissue, so you can see that bud's not there anymore, or a little bit of it is just kind of hanging on there, and the tissue has been scraped. The reason you do that is because the place that is most likely to produce roots is the place that is exhibiting the fastest growth, and that is inside that little bud. So when you scrape that little bud, it is going to be the place that is most likely to produce roots. And then dip your cutting with your scrape into water for just a moment, and then dip it into the rooting hormone. Dipping it in water first helps to the rooting hormone cling to the cutting. And then you want to give the hormone a chance to soak into the tissues, so you give it like a minute to rest, and then push it directly into the rooting mixture. Do not take a finger or a pencil and make a hole. You want the rooting mixture to be as tight as possible against the cutting. And if you put a hole in there and then put the cutting in, you've created an air gap. So you want to just push it straight in. And here's another reason why you let that cutting sit there and absorb the rooting hormone, is because when you push it in, a lot of that rooting hormone is going to get rubbed off. But if you give it a chance to soak in, that doesn't matter. Okay, now's the time to label it. You put it in, it's time to put the label on, and we've already talked about the blinds, so we don't need to talk about them again. And cover it with a 2-liter bottle if you are so inclined. Cut the bottle off of a clear bottle. Do not use like a clear, like a green Sprite bottle. Remove the label. All you have to do is take a box cutter or a regular razor blade and just slice through it, and it'll just peel right off. Be sure to rinse it out, because if you have a sweetened beverage in there, you don't want the sugar in there to attract a bunch of ants, or worse. And ignore this suggestion if you're doing this in November or December, because as I mentioned, you don't have to cover your hardwood cuttings. You can do the same thing with a baggie if you're not a person who drinks 10 gallons of Diet Coke a month. Then you might not have a bunch of pop bottles around, but you certainly can go to the store and get a Ziploc bag, and then you just seal the top. And I have found that sometimes I have much better luck with a baggie. And then other times, when I haven't used a baggie and I've used the pop bottle, I've had much better luck with the pop bottles. And so I have come to the conclusion that it's more the temperature and the time of year that I struck those particular cuttings than which method I used. So whatever works best for you, go ahead and use it. Okay. My little no sun symbol there. Didn't know I was a graphic artist. Put your bag or your pop bottle in a shaded area. You want to be exposed only to open blue sky. Let it get all the light at once from the blue sky, but don't get it in direct sun, because you will make a little tiny greenhouse that will basically cook your cuttings. So the same thing as if you put somebody in a car with all of the windows shut and then park the car in the sun, the people inside the car don't do too well. Well, the same thing is true with the plants. If you take a plant and you put it inside a pop bottle or a baggie and put it directly in the sun, they're not going to do too well. So no direct sunlight. Remove the cover in about 6 to 8 weeks. Use a little tug trick that I mentioned before. Tug on it to see if it's rooted. If it resists, it's rooted and you can leave the top off. If you want to acclimate them to a lower humidity environment slowly, you can just open the bag, take the top off the pop bottle, leave it that way for a week, and then totally remove the cover. If it's really hot, I do that. If it's just kind of warm, you can just remove them and everything should be well. And just because it has shoots and leaves does not indicate that you have roots. So always tug, or you may end up with dead plants. So getting cuttings. We know what to do with the cuttings once we get them, but the trick is how to get the cuttings in the first place. You can walk through old parts of town. In Richmond here, in the spring, you will see lots of old garden roses, and about 80% of them are named Dr. Huey, so that doesn't really do you any good. I am amazed at the number of Dr. Huey rootstock plants that you run into in Richmond. But occasionally you run into a nice old garden rose, and in non-COVID times, would walk up, knock on the door, compliment them on the rose bush, ask if I could have a small cutting, talk to them about roses, and they get excited about their plant. They'll let you have some cuttings, and everybody wins. Right now, you might knock on the door and get COVID, so I've kind of skipped that for the moment. Visit older relatives' houses, and we visited Leanne's grandparents' house and discovered behind their garage was a silver moon large flowered climbing rose that you don't see very often. So we now have silver moon growing in our house. I discovered at my grandmother's house a Dr. Van Fleet that they planted in 1918, and it was still there in the 70s. So you never know where you're going to find neat roses. Abandoned rural homes about to be torn down, and Connie Hilker, who is out of the country right now, but is normally here, could tell you some great stories about her finding roses at houses that were about to be torn down and how she got cuttings and saved the variety. Also visiting cemeteries. You can see that this little tombstone says Boyd on it, no relative of mine that I know of, but boy, do they have a nice rose. So back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, it was customary in cemeteries for families to plant a rose at their loved one's tombstone. And that's kind of gone by the wayside with the commercialization of cemeteries where you can't plant anything and all you can put in is plastic flowers. I think we've lost something there. But certainly old cemeteries do have the roses. Should probably check with the cemetery manager to see if they mind you taking a cutting. So, as far as getting cuttings, the Richmond Rose Society members are great for getting cuttings. I think I have gone to about 6 folks' houses that snuck in the middle of the night. No. They invited me to their rose garden. They're very kind. And I got many rose cuttings from our fellow members. And I do want to give you an open invitation to our wheat-filled gardens that if you would like some cuttings, just let us know, and we'll be glad to make arrangements for you to come by and get some. And I brought some.
Yeah.
Put out the word that you would be delighted to adopt unwanted rose bushes. Everybody in my neighborhood knows this, and I have become the rose orphanage. And it's great because most of them I probably already have, but I'm able to use them to get other people excited about roses and give them away to people who want to get started in roses. I can take cuttings and make some more of those roses. So it's a great way to increase your stock of roses, not necessarily to keep for yourself, but you can be Johnny Appleseed with roses by being able to give them all out across the county. Roses, trading by mail. Okay. There used to be a site called Garden Web, and I traded hundreds of roses through Garden Web all across the country, and was able to greatly increase our collection of roses. At our old house, we had 800 rose bushes.
Oh.
We kind of had to go to Roses Anonymous.
That was pre-Declan days.
That was pre-Declan days, yes. However, there are Facebook groups like Rose Addicts. Rose Addicts is very friendly. They're not rude like a bunch of different online communities. They're just absolutely excited about roses. They help each other identify roses. They recommend roses to each other. And I have traded with various members of Rose Addicts and gotten some great roses out of Texas and out of New England. Help Me Find allows you to put a list there of all the roses that you grow. And they also allow you to put a list of all the roses you would like to grow. And then you can look at other people's lists. You can say, okay, I want Velschenblatt. How can I get a Velschenblatt? So you search Help Me Find, and you look up the list, and you find out who has Velschenblatt and would like to trade. So it's a great way to find roses that maybe are not in commerce anymore. And I used it to try to get a rose called Captain Jack, and that's one of the characters in Doctor Who. And Little Declan has a Doctor Who garden with roses that are named after all the Doctor Who characters that we could find. And anyway, I could not find Captain Jack anywhere. I even contacted the person who bred Captain Jack, and she didn't have Captain Jack. And I found it at Connie Hilker's garden. And that was wonderful. So we now have a Captain Jack, and Declan is delighted. It's right next to the Doctor and Old Master and some other characters from Doctor Who. I have a website which is rosetrader.weebly.com. It's a free website. And I post a large list of all the roses I have that are not patented there. And one of the rose nurseries in Mississippi saw my list and contacted me and said, we'd like to have these 12 cuttings of these 12 different roses because we would like to grow them and we don't have them. And I set up a trade with them. I got 12 of their varieties that they had. So I've got 12 wonderful old garden roses. They got varieties they wanted, and everybody won. So you can put your list, if you have a website, on your website and get the word out, and maybe you'll end up with some more roses. So how do you ship these roses? They're going to be trading through the mail. There's got to be a way. Yeah, here's my secret method. Lay the cuttings on wet paper towels, and no more than 6 inches. And you probably want to trim them to 3 leaves apiece because you don't want to be paying postage for leaves that the other person doesn't need. And you may also want to remove the thorns if you're a very nice person, or if you're not, you can leave them on there. And then you wrap the wet paper towels around the leaves. And today you'll be doing that with these cuttings here. And I've got paper towels, I've got baggies, so you'll be able to do this exact thing to take your cuttings home. And use a cheap 1-gallon generic Ziploc bag. Got a box of those there for you to use. And then you just wrap it up like a burrito, put a little tape so it doesn't unwrap, and label it with a Sharpie. And there is no variety called Vulcan Pride, but I like Star Trek. Then use a priority mailbox. Don't do overnight because you'll be paying into the 20s for no apparent reason. This will get there in 2 days, 3 days at the most, and that's enough time in the mail that it won't hurt anything. I always ship on Mondays because if I ship at the end of the week, it sits at some depot somewhere just cooking in the sun, and that's not any good for anybody. So ship on Mondays, it'll get there on Tuesday or Wednesday. Or if you're shipping it to California, maybe Thursday. So, saving sports, and again, not golf. So what is a sport? Can someone tell me what a sport is?
It's a simple, or what am I thinking? A cane that is completely different from the variety. In other words, it's the only thing I can think of is what was it from fruit trees? I think the Yellow Delicious was like that. It was just it just came into being on some guys up in West Virginia, and now it's all over the world. But it's a sport. I think I have one on my crepe myrtle. I have a white crepe myrtle that's growing out of the side of a pink.
Oh, wonderful. So basically it's a mutation.
Yeah.
And there's a mutation that occurs on part of the plant. So there could be many different types of mutations. One is a different color. And this is a yellow Bill Warner sport growing in the middle of a normally colored Bill Warner plant. And Stranges gave us that to propagate, and then we gave the yellow one back to them. I haven't heard anything about it, but they were going to name it Stranges. And there is Playgirl, and Playgirl's normally a rather deep pink, but you can see there's a light Playgirl flower there. And it actually propagated true. Unfortunately, it got hit with a very bad winter and died, so I don't have it anymore. It could be once blooming to reblooming. Dr. Van Fleet was a very popular rose back in the 1900s, early 1900s, and it sported in the 30s to form a rose called New Dawn that reblooms. And in fact, New Dawn is famous for something other than reblooming, and that is that New Dawn is the very first plant patent ever. So it has plant patent number 1.
Wow.
And New Dawn, not satisfied with doing one trick, did 2 tricks and became Awakening. It sported into Awakening, which is basically the same as New Dawn, except it has twice as many petals and it looks like an Austin. Not to be outdone, Felicity et Perpetuae, which is an 18-foot noisette, once blooming variety, sported into White Pet, which is 3 foot tall and is now a continuously blooming variety. So it did 2 mutations at once. So good for it.
Which rose is that again?
Felicity et Perpetuae became White Pet.
Oh, okay.
And White Pet is a wonderful rose to grow. Felicity et Perpetuae, not so much. First thing is it starts sending 6 to 8 foot shoots underground and can pop out anywhere in your yard at will.
Whoa.
And you dig it up, and that doesn't kill it because it's going to pop up over there. Now you dig that up, and it's coming up over there. So it becomes basically invasive. So do not get Felicity et Perpetuae. Same flower form available in White Pet, good rose. Why save sports? Well, because sports have offered us some of the best roses out there. The Apothecary Rose sported into Rosamunde, which has lovely red and white stripes. New Dawn, as I mentioned, reblooming. And Moss Rose, which has really funky looking sepals on the flower buds that look like moss. So, today's samples, and help yourself when we're done speaking here. We have Laughter. That's a hybrid tea rose from 1948. It's a no spray variety, so if you have an organic garden, it's a good choice. It is, since it's a hybrid tea, but of a non-exhibition form. So we do have a class in the rose shows for non-exhibition form hybrid teas. This would be a good one to enter. Click. Zephyrine Druid, bourbon rose from the 1800s. It's thornless, so that's a good one to put next to your front door. And it is one of the few roses that will bloom being in total shade. It will bloom a nice big flush in the spring, and then it will go to sleep, and you won't hear from it again until the next year. Bow Bells is an Austin. It's about, it can be anywhere from 4 to 6 feet tall. It's one of the early Austins, so it's not chock full of petals, but it's a very sweet little cup-shaped rose. We like it. Altissimo. Who grows Altissimo? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people grow Altissimo. It's a great climbing rose. As you can see, lots of flowers at the same time. Single, but it's a sweet, deep red colored rose. Teasing Georgia, if you like the form of Austins, this one is very flower filled. Nice yellow, and there's not that many yellow Austins. Chestnut Rose, or Rosa Roxbury. It's a species rose, but unlike most species, which just have the boring 5 petals, this one probably has 50 to 60 petals. It blooms over a long period, probably about 3 months, so it's not one of these species roses that give you 2 weeks of blooms and 50 weeks of not so much. And it's no spray, and it's also no Japanese beetles. I've never seen a Japanese beetle on it. It's 0 fragrance, so maybe they can't find it, but or the fact it comes from Japan, maybe they have a natural resistance to Japanese beetles. But for whatever reason, it's a nice rose, the Japanese beetles. Rasia or?
Professional courtesy.
Yes, exactly. They both come from the same hometown. Rive d'Or is a noisette rose, and its canes are about 18-foot long. So if you take your rose and you take 18-foot canes that way and 18-foot canes that way, you've got a 36-foot wide rose bush. It's great for if you're in the country and you have a long, expansive fence. Don't recommend it for a townhouse necessarily, but out in the country it's great. No spray.
Will it go up?
What's that?
Will it go up?
Yes, you can set, you have to train it yourself. It's not going to climb its own way
No,
up.
I know,
but,
but-
yes, it will go up. Rosa bractata, also known as the McCartney rose. Then we'll need one, the Ringo rose, the Paul rose, the John rose, but I digress. And it's a species rose discovered by Lord McCartney. It's a no spray, and actually it looks like a boxwood. It has very small leaflets on it. It's evergreen unless you end up at the single digits, then it will drop leaves, but for the most part it'll stay evergreen through the winter. Nice glossy foliage. It's a parent of mermaid. Who grows mermaid? Okay. Mermaid looks like this, except it's yellow, and the thorns are curved. So if you have to reach into the bush for some reason, you will not reach back out without having lost a significant amount of blood. You need to have rose gauntlets if you reach into that bush.
It is a thorny rascal.
What's that?
That is a thorny rascal. That is no two ways about it.
This one is
Yeah.
thorny?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I bought one from Barry at a fundraiser here, and it is thriving nicely. But if you try to do anything with it, you wear gloves or you donate blood.
We refer to it as razor wire.
That has
If you are
the-
having problems with animals or children running through a particular part of your yard, they will not do that anymore if you have one of these there.
That has the boxwood size leaves.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's really pretty. It's just don't put it in a place where you're gonna wanna walk through.
It also sends out runners, so you need to control it, but it's not as bad as some. Lady Banks, it is huge. It will send out 25-foot long canes. The largest rose bush in the world is a Lady Banks, taking up 9,000 square feet. Somebody planted it back in the 1800s. It's still around, and they put it on this, I don't know how to describe it, but it's got wood that goes up, and then it's got slats that go across this way. There's a word for that, but I don't recall what it is. But they've made an entire shaded, huge area in the garden where this is growing. And they keep having to add more and more to the structure.
Is the white one more rampant? I have a friend that got the white. She thought it would stay small, and it's taken over her front porch.
Actually, I believe the white one is the wild variety, and then, well, they're both wild varieties, but I think the white one's even more ambitious than the yellow one.
Does it climb?
Yes.
Yeah.
Has huge whips.
One bit of warning that we learned the hard way, even though Ladybanks is thornless, do not put it by your front door, because it sounds like a great idea to put it by the front door and let it climb.
Yeah.
It attracts bees.
Actually, wasps.
Like a
Yes,
wisteria
yes,
cheese.
bees and wasps, which is not pleasant. Like I said, we learned the hard way on that one.
It's one of the few we've ever shovel pruned.
Yeah. Which it can be fairly, you can control it as far as size-wise. It's not like Welschenblau where you can literally watch it grow. I swear you can. But it's, if you don't pay attention to it, it will
Yes.
take off.
Silver moon, nice large flowered climber, blooms once a year, but for about 4 weeks. You can see there a hedgerow that we had that was about 40 feet long at our old house, and that kept out deer, cars, whatever. Nothing was getting through that. Welschenblau, hybrid multiflora, we just mentioned. It gets very long, but you can keep it under control. You can keep it as a hedge about this big, or you can let it go up on your deck and have it completely cover your deck, which we did. And I've been battling it, so, but it's thornless, which is nice.
The flowers are really deeper purple than that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's almost blue.
Yeah, I have that, I got one from you and it's on my
Okay.
second story balcony now.
Uh-huh. Do you like it?
3 years. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
It seems to bloom heavier on the shade side of the porch
Wow.
than on the sun side.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I was sort of surprised.
Great.
Yeah, we set it up well, it set itself up, the handrail to our second story deck. And then it decided to go around the deck. And then it wasn't happy, so it decided to drop down and completely cover the floorboards of the deck.
Oh my God.
And, so I've been clearing it out of the floorboards.
Yeah,
That's where
we
some
don't
of these
really-
cuttings came from.
For the most part, we don't use the deck, so we just kind of like, we let it do its thing until we occasionally go in and clear it out, and then every so often we'll have to go back and re-clear it out. And so it just,
Yeah, so basically our deck is turned into a trellis.
yeah,
Wow.
it's our trellis for
And
it.
the last rose to mention, Rainbow's End, this is a climbing version, gets about 8 feet tall. Very sweet rose, starts out yellow, then it gets these nice little red tips on it, and then it eventually turns completely red. Questions?
I do. I just got a tiny little rose from Heirloom Roses. Gosh, Kimberly. Anyway, we were trying to keep the dogs out of it. I had my husband play goalie, and my husband stomped on it, and one of the canes completely broke off. It's new, it has no leaves. Can it be saved with any kind of propagation?
I would try it. I have stepped on roses before and ended up with 2 roses, which was nice. And other times I've stepped on roses and just had a smaller rose because the cuttings didn't take. So there's no harm in trying. Use the rooting hormone, because when you come up to get your cuttings, I have little bags of white powder. And since this is not the 80s, this is rooting hormone. And you are welcome to take a bag, and that's the good stuff.
It was California Dreamin', I just remembered.
Okay.
So there'll be no dreaming.
No, but take some cuttings. I mean, I don't know how big a piece. You might get 2 cuttings out of that. So give it a shot. It can't hurt.
Okay, thanks.
Lori,
And
I'm
so
sorry.
I'd like to go ahead. I'm sorry.
What was the rose you said was so good at the beginning?
Easy does it.
Easy does it. Okay.
Yeah, it is wonderful.
It's beautiful.
Really great.
And does it come in 2 different colors?
Yeah, it's
I think it's
cream.
yellow, isn't it yellow? I've got the
It's-
orange.
That's what I
It's
had.
kind of a peachy, I'm not sure peach is the right word, but it's
It's
an
a
orange,
peachy orange. It's
yellow
pretty.
Yeah.
type.
But I think it also comes in yellow, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
Well, there's an easy going that's yellow, I
Yeah,
think.
okay.
I think that's what you're thinking
That
around.
might be it. I might be confusing them.
But Easy Does It is orangey.
Yeah,
and
orange,
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure
yeah,
that
it's yes, it's
Oh,
beautiful.
mine's pretty
And then there's the whole
yellow.
line of Oh So Easy roses.
Yeah.
Which, I'm not real fond of drift and some of the knockouts, but the Oh So Easies, they look very different from each other. And I found a place that was selling them for $4 a piece. I can't turn down a bargain. Got about 8 different varieties of it, and they're growing along our sidewalk, and they have been wonderful.
Oh,
And some
Are
of
they
the
meant
ones
to
are
be
supposed
a low shrub or what?
yeah, they're mostly a low shrub that's supposed to be about knee-high. I have 2 of them that are this high. They didn't read the directions, so we have to get them trimmed back. But highly recommend the Oh So Easy series, because you don't have to spray them. And there's some singles, there's some semi-doubles, there's some fully doubles, there's red, there's yellow, there's bicolor, and if you don't have to spray, that's always a plus. You're not going to win, queen of the show with them, but they're nice garden roses.
Totally unrelated to rooting, I had the worst case of Japanese beetles this year, and I just killed hopefully the last one yesterday. I would spray and I would pick them off, and I got upset spraying one time because I sprayed too late and I killed a bunch of bees. So, do the bags work? I mean, I know they attract Japanese beetles, but
No,
is
don't
that
get
just don't get them?
They're a
Don't.
great present to give your neighbors, but I wouldn't put them
'Cause
in your
it'll
yard
draw.
because they're going to attract them to your yard. If you have a
It'll
neighbor
draw
that
from
doesn't
the roses.
grow roses or anything that, they just grow lawn, then you might be able to talk them into putting them on the far side of their yard and try to pull them
Away
out of
from
your
the
yard.
roses.
Well,
But then they would work.
I've got enough yard space because I live on a farm.
Ah.
So could I put the bags far enough away from the roses? At least
That might help, go ahead.
At least
No, I
I've
was
got
just
plenty
asking
of.
the same question, because I've heard that they work as long as they're far away from your roses.
But I mean, they were just horrible this year. I mean, I would go out and the bush would just be rocking and rolling with the Japanese beetles
No, they
on
had
it.
club meetings. right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. So you could put them far enough away and it would help?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's not all of the sprays that are out there work on them. Like malathion, it gets them drunk and makes them want to party, but it doesn't kill them. 7 works well, but it kills the bees.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we are fortunate that our house, our roses are growing in dappled sunlight. It's not full sunlight, which we were complaining about until we discovered that Japanese beetles like full sunlight, and so it really cut back on the number of
Well,
Japanese
my
beetles. But our
Japanese
roses
beetles,
are not as
they don't care
beautiful.
where they are, they'll eat them.
Ah.
I did some research on Japanese beetles because I've never had them like I did here. One year on my peach trees, the peaches were so covered with them from my front porch, it looked like copper balls.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I did some research. They come out and they start to eat and they go back in the ground and lay eggs and they come back out and eat and they may do that 6 to 7 times. So if you can use the milky spore, it takes 3 to 5 years to work, but then you at least get them to stay away from your area, and it is very effective.
Have you
But the
tried?
bags you've got to dunk every day or every other day, because they'll fill up in 3 or 4
Oh,
days.
yeah. Well, I was, the one year that I used the bags, I dumped them twice a day.
Whoa.
You need to get chickens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be easy.
Yeah, easier. But the chickens will eat the Japanese beetles?
Yeah, you put them in water and give them the bucket.
Oh.
Ugh.
Frenzy.
So Japanese beetles, in effect, ultimately become your Sunday dinner.
Yes. There is payback.
And I have read that they're edible, but
Oh,
not
God.
in my bush.
One thing I want to try, and I found the tip too late to do this year. Somebody put out the little sand buckets that you can get like Dollar Tree in the rose garden, filled with water and some dish detergent. And she said the yellow ones were more effective at gathering them, but she was trapping them in there, just putting those out in the rose garden. So I mean, that can't hurt anything.
Yeah.
May not
that's a good
help,
idea.
but it's not going to do any damage.
I know some people just take the buckets full of soapy water and walk next to the flowers and flick them in.
That's what
Oh,
I did.
yeah, that's
this
what I
year.
did several times a day, but that got old after a while.
Yeah.
You have to do it really early in the morning and late at night, once they get quiet. Otherwise, once you've tapped it, the whole bush flies away.
Now, there's a bacteria, I'm going to butcher its name, but it's like Bacteria thurgescensis, and it's advertised as BT spray, and people use it against caterpillars. However, apparently, some scientists have developed a strain of BT that, when ingested by Japanese beetles, give them a really bad tummy ache and they stop eating and die. And so I don't know too much about it, but the internet can provide the information if you have a Japanese beetle problem, because it's bee safe. If you spray in the evening after the bees have gone to bed, by the time the morning rolls around and it's dry, it's not going to kill your bees. So there's a particular strain of BT spray that hopefully will control the Japanese beetles without causing damage to your good insects.
I will have a report at the next meeting.
Thank you.
And obviously won't hurt the flowers.
No, not at all. Okay. Everyone ready to grab some cuttings? Help yourself. I'm going to get a bucket of water here. You've got some paper towels. Just do that burrito trick. Put them into your paper towels. We'll wrap it up and we'll be set.
Hey, Barry,
Thank you.
can we do it this way?
Uh-huh.
How many varieties you got?
I have 10 varieties.
Okay,
I'm sorry, 12. Okay.
so if we take the sign-in sheets, you go down the line, skip, I hate to do it this way,
That's nice.
but I think it would be fair that way. What do you think?
Sure.
Okay, so if I go to number 4, that was that name that, yes, you're number 4. You want to go pick one? Sure.
And at
One?
the end, if there's stuff left over, free for all.
Okay. Because we've got
How many do I get to take?
just one,
Oh, just one.
Oh.
just one.
He's got multiple of all of these.
You all right?
Well, at some point, we can get some more, because there's so
And when you grab the cuttings of a variety, grab 2 or 3 cuttings, because nobody gets 100%
Oh, you've got
fruiting.
more than just one in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I can use everybody's name then.
Absolutely. I've got about 20 cuttings of 12 different varieties. So there's lots of cuttings.
So
Okay,